All right, hey everybody, what's going on? It's Franky Corcoran. Welcome to the Corcoran Entertainment Show, Thursday Think Tank with Christian and friends. The only difference here today is that Christian is not here because he doesn't like us for some reason. No, I was just kidding. Christian, he will be here next week due to scheduling conflicts. But this is our first Think Tank in a few weeks. Just with scheduling, I was like, you know what? I said we're not going to push this off. I want to do the Think Tank again. I want to get my brain going and here's some ideas. Christian's not here, but oh well, we'll make her work. But today I got somebody who's better than Christian. No, I'm kidding, Christian. Love you, Ben. Today I'm joined by Robbie Rego, aspiring podcaster and a freedom forger. You guys can, if you guys actually go on our Corcoran Entertainment YouTube channel and look at our Meet the Freedom Forgers video that we did a couple months back, you will see Robbie there. So, Robbie, how's it going, man?
Hey Frankie, hi everybody. How's everyone doing? I'm doing fabulous. I am excited to be doing this think tank. I am pumped, man. I am pumped to be here. Honestly, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for coming on. So, for those of you guys who didn't watch that video, the Meet the Freedom Forgers video, feel free to watch it because we beat the other ones, Sean K. Barr, Shelby Kemp. Great group there. But this one here, it's just Robbie and I. Me and Robbie are just going to shoot the shit. But before we do that, and before we hear some of his ideas, who is Robbie Rego? So, Robbie, feel free to slate and tell us about you, what you do, who you are, just whatever you want to do. Just don't get too personal. You don't got to give your social insurance number or anything like that. You can message me that. You can message me that later in private.
Yeah, exactly.
So slate and action.
Well, hi everybody. As Frankie said, I'm Robbie. My name is actually Robert, but for this, I'm Robbie Reegs, and I am a freedom forger. I am an aspiring podcaster, content creator, singer. I guess you could say jack of all trades. And I'm blind. For those who don't know, we should just get that right out of the way right now. I cannot see. I was born with retinopathy of prematurity, or ROP, as they call it. And I am totally blind. I have been blind since birth. I am 25 years old. And, well, at least I think I'm 25. The years seem to go by really quickly. But, that's me in a nutshell. Blind, content creator, singer, basically anything I feel like I am that day, you know?
So that's the end of your test. So your name is what again?
Well, my name, my full name, I don't want to give away my last name, but my name is actually Robert. My actual name is Robert, but Robbie Reegs actually came from, so dad's name, they used to call him Reegs as a kid because, I'm not going to give too much of that away, but they used to call him that as a kid. That was his nickname. And basically, I kind of stole it from him, if I'm being honest. I stole that name because Robbie Reegs just sounds cool. Robbie Rego, it doesn't have a very good ring to it, but Robbie Reegs sounds pretty dope. So, and I just give away my last name too, but whatever.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's on the Zoom video here anyway. We're not sure when the video is coming out, but it says it right on there. I'm sure Christian would be able to edit that out. So Your name is Robbie Rego, Robbie Reegs. We'll call you Robbie Reegs. You know that sounds like it sounds like a rapper name.
Oh my God, yeah. Funny you should mention that. I claim to be no expert. I kind of grew up as an old timer there, Frankie. Even though I'm 25, I feel like I'm 65 going on 70. But I am working on rapping currently. So, yeah.
Oh my God.
Maybe in the future you'll hear a little single from me. We could talk more about that later if you want. I got a funny dream I can tell you about, but
yes, absolutely.
If you want,
we'll include that for our pitch segment. I'm sure you probably have some of those ideas to pitch. Do you like rapping, or is it just podcasting?
Well,
a little bit of both. I mean,
a bit of both because I love rap. I feel I resonated with it a lot because I just love how rappers just go for it. They don't care about like, they don't care what they're saying. I mean, sometimes they should, but that's just hear their opinion. But
They got to express themselves in some way, and that's what I love about any artist.
yes,
But then
yes.
also with the day and age we live in, it's honestly kind of a shame that sometimes people are uh they can't really express themselves in a way, because if they express themselves, some people can express themselves, and some people might say, "Oh, it's too much. That's too sensitive. We don't want to hear about that," which is a shame, because it depends on what it is. You can unburden yourself and not offend people, but it's just the day and age we live in nowadays. But rapping, I mean, that's just, I mean, I always say art and writing, music, plays, anything, movies, that's the best medicine. That's the best coping mechanism for anything. Um, and a great way to express yourself. And that's what I really, really love about art. Art has helped me. How has art really helped you with any struggles that you might deal with on a daily basis, mental or anything?
Yeah, so for me, like when I was a kid, when I was like about 4 or 5, I think. Yeah, around there. I went to Lake Joe, and I was this little 4 or 5 year old thing on stage, and I'm starting to sing. Everyone thought I would sing like "How much is the doggy?" and something kitty like that, or "This old man he played nine, he played knick-knack on it," something kitty, right? What does Rob sing? "Love Me Tender" by Elvis Presley at 4 years old.
Can you sing it now?
You really want to hear me sing, Frankie?
Yes, I want to hear you sing. That's why.
Okay. Love me tender, love me dear, tell me you are mine. I'm just going to include this because it's my favorite verse. For it's there that I belong and will never part. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfill. For my darling, I love you, and I always will. There's a little bit of us for y'all.
Woo! Damn, that was good,
Thank you.
man. I didn't know
Thank
you
you,
had that
man.
in you. Every time I talk to you, you're always like, "Yeah, I want to do a podcast. I want to do this and that." I never knew that you had that in you. So this is all news to me as well. That's
Well,
great. And what,
thank you, man.
4 years old? You said that you knew
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
That's crazy,
four
dude.
years old.
That's wild. Do you
Yeah,
have any
and
particular? I mean, like you talk about rap. Do you have any other favorite genres that you want to do? Like, it must be hard, especially as a singer when or songwriter, that you like so many different genres. Like some people will splice them up. People like rap, people like country, they do country rap. Have you ever thought of that? Like you like rap and rock and roll. Do you ever think about doing rock and roll rap? How do you think of that?
oh yeah, well, I love every kind of genre there is as long as it's good. I like it. So I mean, I don't see why not, because like I said, I started doing this when I was 4, and I love every kind of genre out there. I mean, from classical to gangster rap to polka music. I like everything. Um, and so yeah, so what at 4 years old, I'm singing "Love Me Tender," and I thought that it would end there. I'm just like, oh, I'll just do this "Love Me Tender" thing. But then I started taking singing lessons, and I didn't like it very much because they were getting me to sing all kind of stupid kid songs. So I dropped out of that. Tried a few piano lessons. Wasn't a fan of that because all my life I was told what to do and when to do it. All of my life, and that came from uh, I don't know if that came from just me beating myself up, or if it came from society. I don't know where it really came from, but I was always being told what to do and when to do it. And so I was like, okay, well, I have to sing these songs. These people say I have to do it, so I guess I have to do it. But I didn't enjoy it. And then one day, Deanna Akins, who Frankie, you've heard her voice, you've heard her name on the film, haven't you? The Freedom Forgers film.
Deanna Akins, I'll have to go back and watch that again. It's been a while since I watched it. That was the
Yeah.
Forging New X
Yes.
video. Yeah,
Yeah.
geez, I can't remember if I remember that name. I'll have to go back and watch it. That's a great documentary, by the way. Like
It's an awesome
it's a
documentary. They did
fantastic
such a good
documentary.
job with it. But yeah, like you know, it's not until I found the Infinity Forge that I started to really hone in on my art because every teacher was like, hey, you're a great singer, you're great this, but we want you to do what we want you to do. And that's that. We don't care what your other genres are. We want you to do what we want you to do. And no one was really giving me free will to just do what I want to do. And that's the worst thing for any artist is when people are on you about what to do and what not to do. And so I was just like, hey, you know what? I don't think I'll pursue this. I don't think the arts are for me. People are way too demanding. I just feel like I'm being used here. Like this is not for me. Until I discovered the Infinity Forge by Deanna Akins, who was like, hey, you wanna, I know this guy and my friend Christian Potenza. He's an artist, he's a voice actor, and if you grew up in Canada, I'm sure you all know who Christian is because he does this awesome podcast with Franky. But he's a voice actor, producer, everything. And it wasn't until I met him and discovered the Infinity Forge, which is now the Freedom Forgers, that I was able to hone in on my art and be like, yeah, this is something I want to pursue. So that's that's the long answer, Frankie. That's the long answer. I ramble a lot. I apologize.
No, that's fine, man. That's fine. Listen, the best part about this compared to radio is that radio, it's like, okay, you have 5 minutes. With this one here, time is your time. You know what I mean? Like if it's too long, we can edit it. But very rare I do that. This is our time, and this is what I love about podcasts. We're not, we're not tied down by time constraints. Our time, this is our time. I decide what goes and what doesn't. So I'm cutting this whole episode. This was a waste of time. No.
Screw this Robbie Regs guy. He talks too much.
No, that's awesome, man. But and the one thing that always intrigued me about you, Robbie, is, I mean, like first off, like, I mean, you're blind. I mean, I said it, I said it very bluntly, but it's true, right? You're blind, and you don't let that get you down. That's what I think is great about you, and that you do things that even Christian said too. He said Robbie does things that I forget, or that make me forget that he's blind, which is truly a remarkable achievement. And I think we've talked about this before. When you have a disability, it's so people will always put you down and say you can't do this and you can't pursue that. You want to pursue that for a career? Too bad, you're not going to be able to. You found a way to pursue that. Being a freedom forger. How do you go about not letting your disability take you down or define you?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. The main thing is, what are the able-bodied people doing? That's what I look at. What are they doing? How are they doing this? And if they're doing it this way, then why can't I? It's it's something that you have to constantly exercise because in more times than not, society is going to always tell you what you can do and what you can't do, especially if you're in a marginalized community like I am. You're constantly, whether people are saying it to your face or whether it's in actions. And when I say by actions, I mean, you know, someone can tell you, oh my God, here's this amazing app that I use for editing, and you go and get it and people rave about how great it is. You as the blind person go and get it only to find out that A, you can't edit, and B, it's not accessible even if you wanted to edit. So well, that's what I mean by actions. And you're gonna always encounter those things. But I honestly think from studying this craft, because I've been studying podcasting for oh my God, for 4 years now. And we'll talk about that later, but I've been studying how other podcasters do it, and fully able-bodied ones too, and of course some blind creators. But my thing was always, if the able-bodied people can do it, then why can't I? And I might have to do something a little bit different, but that doesn't mean I can't do it. I just might need more help, or I might have to do it in a different way, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be able to do it. And so that's the attitude I had, or I have, going into it. It's like, here are all these amazing podcasters. Like I grew up on podcasting. I didn't grow up with any of these people, but I grew up, speaking of podcast wise, with great shows like Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, The Skinny Confidential with Lauren and Michael, the Ed Milet Show. Ed Milet's a self-help author and speaker. All these great people, and they're all able-bodied. I'm just like, well, the only difference between me and them is I can't see and they can. There's barriers, but it's about getting through those barriers and not letting it, define you. And if they can do it, then hey, what am I doing sitting on my butt,
Exactly. That's what I love about you, though, man. Like, so many people would let that get to them. You see someone who is in a wheelchair and they think they can't do anything. Well, you're wrong. There's something for everybody, no matter what, and it's always difficult, or like it's very easy for people to get discouraged by that, no matter what the disability is. And everything that you guys do with the Freedom Forgers is inspiring, not just to me, but to anybody really, because I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think about how to word this, because it's one of the things that Christian says in that documentary, which is the Forging New Acts, is when he was recruiting people and saying, I always wanted to do this, but nobody would let me. And Christian, because of course, going back to Christian's past, he was told when he was in school that he had a learning disability and wouldn't be able to pursue a career as a voice actor. And look at him now. And so had he listened, then he wouldn't be doing what he's doing right now. Like, everyone's journey is going to be different. Don't get me wrong. Everyone's journey is going to be different. Everyone's going to go through different. Some people, it might take longer. Some people, they might get it immediately. But it's, if you're passionate about it and you're willing to have the patience to, if it happens, it happens. If not, I'm happy to do it as a hobby. How did you deal with that, dealing with it, or like pursuing this as a passion? Not sure, am I going to be able to pursue this due to my disability, but I'm just happy to do it as a hobby kind of thing. How did you find that balance?
Yeah, so I can't answer that question without talking about my first podcast, The Way I See It. Because
I see what you did there, by the way.
yeah, no, it was that was the name of it. So I wanted to start a podcast called The Way I See It. Actually, it was Christian's idea. Because he's like, you see things in such a cool way. Why not try the way why not call the podcast The Way I See It? And I'm like, great, sweet, okay, sounds good. So a helper who was with us, they were just, a lot of them they were helpers from a disability program that we were a part of. And this helper said to me, you know what, why don't you go and see what podcasts you can, uh, why not go and get, find motivation from other podcasters? And I'm like, okay, fair enough. I knew nothing about the game, Franky. I knew nothing. So I start doing that. Well, what people don't tell you is if you spend too much time doing that, you're going to suck all the creative juice out of yourself. because when I started doing that, it was fine at first, but all that I was doing was just looking at what other people were doing. And so I'm listening to all these amazing podcasts like the ones I described, and I am I'm doing well first. The way I see it's kind of hitting it off, but I'm not getting any audience. It's not going anywhere, but I'm just like, okay, let me just keep going with it and see what happens. So picture this, Frankie. All right. Picture a guy on his iPad using a USB microphone and thinking he's so hip, right? Can you imagine that?
I
Is
got
that
it
somebody?
envisioned right here.
Okay, great. Because that was me. I I remember getting on an iPad and I did not have half the equipment I have now. I didn't have a mixer. I had nothing. And so I'm just like, oh my God, I'm just this such a great podcaster. I can't even do solo episodes. My solo episodes suck. Why not try interviewing people instead? So I call up a few people that I know of. I don't know any of them personally, but I listen to their shows. So I call up a few people and says, look, I have this podcast called The Way I See It. Um, I told them who I was and stuff. And surprisingly, some people bought into it. Some people went for it. Uh, I interview them. The interviews go terribly. They went terrible, if I should say so myself. They were awful. And I couldn't understand. Like I didn't prepare for any interview. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't understand what preparation meant. And I wanted to do this for a living when I had The Way I See It. Like that was all that I could think of to do, podcasting, because it felt so original to me. So I'm starting and I'm interviewing. I'm not getting anything. And not only that, Frankie, I am now on the verge of burnout because I am comparing myself to people who have been, let me just move my microphone down here, to people who have been in the game for about 5 years already. By the time I'm getting started, they're like 5 years ahead of me. And I, to make a long story short, I was burnt out to beyond belief. I had no other idea. I was just done. And so I'm like, why am I keeping a podcast up for no reason? And if you can hear that, that's my phone in the background, my home phone.
Answer it, Nuckin.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I was just like, you know what? This is not worth it's not worth it. This pot, it had its time. Its time was 2 years and it was just not to shut it down because it did not represent who I was anymore. I was leveling up. And if someone were to look at that show now, they'd see a very anxious, very insecure person on the end of the mic. And not only that, I was using my podcast to try and gain some sort of community. And most of the time, when I call these interviews, quote, interviews, it wasn't an interview. It was the guest consoling me, telling me how amazing I am. It was just them stroking my ego. And I'll never forget this. There was one podcast duo who that I did an interview with, and the one and it was a women empowerment podcast. It was a great cause. It was a wonderful, wonderful cause. I still love their whole brand, but basically, I did an interview with a woman and actually two women, and one of them said, I asked them like, could you lead this segment? Can you do X, Y, and Z? And they're like, one of them's like, Robbie, this is your podcast. Kind of vibe is you need to lead it kind of thing. She didn't say any of those exact words.
But she kind of worded it in a way that implied it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, a lot of people did. I didn't understand what they meant back then, but a lot of them did. And that was the end of it. I just said, screw the industry, screw podcasting. I'm done. I'm done. And took a bit of a break for a few months to try and get my mental health in check because I was so burned out. I didn't know I couldn't even I couldn't even literally listen to a podcast without, thinking, oh, this would make good. Oh, I'd love to have this person, love to have this person. And once I started to become more mentally stronger, then I go to Christians and I go to Christian, I says, hey man, you know what? I'm gonna shut the way I see it down. But in its place is gonna be a brand new show that we're producing right now called Check Your Blind Spot. So in the whole to answer you to finally get to your question, Frankie. um I always wanted to do this, but because of my burnout, I didn't think I can. And so I had to step back and say, you know what? I need to really get a grip on my mental health before I do any of this. Because I feel like as a host, your job is to host the show, not for the guests to come and give you free therapy, you know? And
Exactly.
I was like, I need to shut this down, take a break, step back, don't worry about it for a few months. And now that now that I have drawn those boundaries from content in general, I'm now able to fully dive into it and just, be present with it. But if you don't have those boundaries, then it's going to drive you nuts. It's going to drive you crazy. But yeah, that's my answer. It's just not to draw boundaries with it.
Absolutely. And it's something I know of people personally myself who I work with in community theater. I say, would you ever pursue this for a career or as a career? They said I would, but I'm not going to because I want to make sure that I keep acting a hobby and I don't want it to interfere because you're doing something 40 hours a week. You get tired of it. You get tired of it and then uh so it'd be like if you were an actor working 40 hours or however many hours. Being an actor be a lot more than that, and then on the side you're doing a community theater play. You're like, crap, this is just more acting. I need something to distance myself from this. And so I know of people who do say I would never pursue a career in this because I don't want to ruin something that is so dear to me, something that I'm so passionate about, because burnout's real and people don't realize it. And that's the truth. um not just in theater, but really anything. Someone could love to build stuff outside their house. They could build their own garage, but then once it comes to doing it for a living, build a garage and then come home and, oh crap, or let's say, sorry, they're a carpenter and then they come home to build a garage. It's like, this is my time off and I'm still doing what I do at work. So it's really, some people handle it differently. Like some people, they always say you never work a day in your life if you do what you love. So it's really different for everybody. I mean, I love doing this stuff here. So I mean, for me, it's really it's almost like this isn't a chore to me. Some days you get tired, but no matter what you do, you're gonna get tired. You have kids, you're gonna get tired at some point. Not tired of the kids to say I don't want kids anymore, but to the point where it's like I'm tired. I just need a break. Call the grandparents, have them come take them. Same kind of deal. Might not be an exact comparison, but it's that kind of vibe. Um, and so what exactly so I mean, of course, you had the podcast, the way I see it, shut it down because of burnout. Why do you feel, before we go into what your pitch is, why did you feel like now was the right time to say, maybe I'm ready to go for it again? It's almost like a bad relationship. Okay, this one was bad. Now I'm ready. Some time has healed. Time to get back into Tinder.
Yeah, no. Well, with this, I it's because like I now am able to step back. I know what that feels like. When I had the way I see it, I had no clue what that meant. I knew I had to do it, but I'm like, what am I going to do instead to take its place? Because for 365 days a year, 7 days a week, I was on social media, YouTube, podcast, whatever. And you know, now that I pulled back, found meditation, found other friends that are not in the industry, made some more friends that are not in the industry, I'm like, you know what? I can be on, and then if I want to, I can turn off. And it's about turning on and turning off your content persona. Because I told Christian this. I said, because he was asking me, like, you have a Valentine's Day album out. How come you don't tell any of your, how come you don't tell any of your, any of your friends or family what you do? Or, family knows, but some family knows, but he goes, how come you're not telling like some certain friends and stuff? I said, because I don't want to be always known as Robbie Reegs, the content creator. That's not who I am. That's part of who I am. I am a content creator. I can talk to people till the cows come home, but that also means that I can't cry. That also means that, I mean, you could, but I don't know. That also means that I can't be as vulnerable as I would like to because you feel like you're not allowed to be. There are some people that can get up on a mic and start crying their eyes out, but I'm just not at that level yet, you know? And so I just didn't want my content persona or my creation persona to leak into every aspect of my life. Like I just got sick of it. I got sick of everyone knowing like, hey, Robbie's a podcaster. This is what he does. Rob's a content creator now. This is what I'm like, can't I just be myself? And
Mhm.
when I started to find these group of people that allowed me to be myself, they didn't care whether I had a podcast or not. They didn't care whether I was doing content creation or not. When I found these group of people outside of creating stuff, that's what really helps. That's what really helped me to be like, you know what? Uh, you're not the content creator. You are Rob. You're just you, and you can be who you are in this space. And I would say that to everyone. It's like this is why I wanted to because now that I can find a place, I can turn on and off and be who I am 1 second, and then the next second snap into content creation mode. Now that I found a way to do that, now that's why I felt that this is a perfect time to pitch and launch, not even launch, but work on Check Your Blind Spot because I can do that now. And Frankie, I am so proud to say that because I never thought I would get to this point where I can turn on and off. Like that has been a life changer for me. So yeah, that's basically why.
That's excellent, man. That's really excellent. And that you didn't just walk away from it. Some people might have just walked away and just said, I can't deal with that anymore. I don't want to be known as that. Um, you were able to take some time, find yourself. The way I see a good comparison, I say it would be like if you ran a store that was at your house, you close up shop and then go home, which is at the store, and people will still come in. I need this, I need this, I need this. And you're like, well, I'm at home right now. Or like, oh no, I'm taking a shit and you're coming in here. Like, get out of here. It's like,
Exactly.
so yeah, like no matter what, there'd be people. So I totally get that way. And even celebrities, you see celebrities online. One that always stands out to me is I'm not sure if you watched it. Tobey Maguire, of course, he played Spider-Man. He was getting angry at paparazzi. He was trying to drive. Paparazzi are blocking his car, do this, Toby. And he opens the car door, hits the paparazzi, says, "Get the fuck out of the way. I can't see the car." And so people were blasting that, saying, "Oh my God, Tobey Maguire is an asshole. He does this to people and stuff." It's like, no, like the dude's just trying to live his life and people are crowding his goddamn car. Like, yes, he's Spider-Man, but he's also a person. You know what I mean? You got to let him be who he is. Can you imagine them doing that to you?
Oh my god, and that's just it. Look what happened to Britney Spears. I mean, there was one clip in her documentary or some movie or something about her where she dropped her baby by accident. Everyone's crowding around laughing their heads off It's like, if this was any other person, would you do that to them? The answer is no. And this is also the other part of the reason why I'm so protective of my own of my time, because if I start to get known as Robbie Riggs the activist, Robbie Riggs the mental health this, Robbie Riggs the next thing you know, I won't have any room to just be me. And that's what these people have gotten into, like you said, with Tobey Maguire, with Spider-Man. He, in my opinion, like he was so focused on being something to the public. And that's great. But then, like what you said, now he has paparazzi chasing his car. It's like that. Yeah, that just baffles my mind, man. I can't even imagine what would happen. Well, I would go crazy. I'd go stir cray cray.
Like poor dude trying to live his life. But when it's celebrities, it's okay. Like one comparison, it's crazy. Someone brought this up. It was 2 years ago. This happened, the Will Smith and Chris Rock situation. If it was anybody else who walked on stage and slapped Chris Rock, they would have been tackled. They would have been beaten. They would have been escorted off the property. But it was Will Smith. He walked up, slapped him in the face, and sat down and watched the rest of the award show. And then also got a speech for, or got an award
Jesus
for Best Actor.
Christ.
If it was anybody else, it would have been different. But it's Will
Yep.
Smith. He's
Yep.
rich. He's famous. He can do whatever the hell he wants, kind of thing. And of course, there were consequences to it. But just saying that if it was anybody else, it would have been handled completely differently.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If he was just the guy on the side of the road, they probably would have tackled his ass.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
absolutely. And then like, oh, I'm already getting him. We're gonna. Oh, it's Will Smith. Okay, leave him be. Leave him be. It's okay. So Robbie, we were alluding to this a little bit. You had kept mentioning check your blind spot, this new podcast idea, which sounds super exciting, but now is the time for the pitch where
Yes.
we get to talk more in depth about it. We've been hearing lots about it. When we were talking the other night, you and Christian, I heard you had alluded to it, but we were like, let's save it for the think tank. So this is your pitch. Robbie Reegs, Rob the man, what do you have today for our Thursday Think Tank podcast? Whatever you want to pitch. This is your opportunity. And lights, camera, action.
Yeah. So check your blind spot is a whole bunch of podcasts within a podcast, essentially. Because when I was figuring out, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to make of myself now that I'm back? Now that I can do it, what do I want to do? And everyone, if you listen to any podcast advice on the internet, everyone is just like, find your niche, find your niche. What works for you? Find your niche. And I don't agree with that because, first of all, just to set the record straight, there are 5 million shows. That's just an estimate. I'm not a researcher. Don't take my word on that, people. But there are a whole bunch of shows where they have a whole bunch of shows within a show. For example, Armchair Expert, they have the main Armchair Expert. Then they have Flightless Bird, which is hosted by a New Zealand guy that Dax Shepard and Monica, his co-hosts, knew. They knew who he is, so they gave him a show. Monica from the show has her own show with her friend Liz called Synced. And then they have Armchair Anonymous, where listeners call in. They have a whole bunch of questions, and listeners call in and tell them stories and stuff. They have a whole bunch of topics. So you get my drift. There, you can have one main show, but you can do so much with that show. It is endless, endless what you can do with that show. So from doing all this research, I'm like, okay, so my ideas are comedy hour for Check Your Blind Spot. Okay, so first I gotta just be clear. The main Check Your Blind Spot show is all about my experiences. I'll be telling stories. I'll be either with a co-host or myself talking about whatever's on my mind that day. For example, mental health, I'll do an episode on that. I'll do an episode about, maybe about blindness related stuff, but that's the main show is advocacy, mental health, things like that. But within this big check your blind spot uh show, there is comedy hour where me or a co-host, maybe Frankie will join me for that. Comedy hour is where we just have fun. We just goof around. We do, we talk about funny things we've seen. We react to funny videos and stuff. So that's comedy hour. A story based show. I don't have a name for that yet, but that is where listeners or a guest can come on and tell a story, whether it's a serious story uh, to educate people, to entertain, educate, or whether it's just something funny that happened to you. You can come on and talk about that. You could share your story, and you know, me as being the interview, I'll ask you a whole bunch of questions because I want to get to the root of. I'd love to learn more about your story. So if you have any stories that you have, whether it's funny, whether it's serious, whether it's just plain weird, even if it's about ghosts and spirits and stuff, this is the place to do it. Like I said, I don't have a name for this show yet, but that's the story time idea. Blind Trizes. This is going to be more of a YouTube thing where Christian and I, or the Freedom Forgers and I, will be trying out like it's the basis of it is me trying out new stuff. So we already, my friend Kareem and I, Sean K, already filmed an episode where I tried candy for the first time. I'm not that old, guys. It's not that I tried new candy for the first time. There we go. That's blind tries. So just taste tests, doing different things, trying out different foods, all that stuff. Uh, Blind commentary. This show is gonna be all about my comments on what's happening in the world. So if I see something that is controversial, I comment on that. Just controversial things. That's blind commentary. And some of it will be within the blind community and some will not. It all depends on what I find and stuff like that. So that's what that is. And blind movie mania. This is where I watch movies with audio description and I review it. So I've watched a whole bunch of movies with audio description, like Finding Nemo and The Golden Girls and a whole bunch of stuff, movies and TV shows. And I review all of it. I talk about what I like, what I didn't like, all of that. So as you can see, Check Your Blind Spot's not just one thing based podcast. There are a whole bunch of things that we can do here and make them into shows. And I'm grateful that so many other podcasters are doing this because it gets people away from this is my brand. This is the only thing I talk about. This is all I talk about. Da da da. It's like, no, that's not me. I don't fit into a category like that. So yeah, that is the basis of Check Your Blind Spot. A whole bunch of things in one. And Check Your Blind Spot, I got the name from when I was uh I I I I was trying to find a name for this new venture. And I thought, okay, well, what do I want to call this? I don't want to call it the way I see it. I don't want to call it some other blind related name. So I'm like, okay, well, when people say don't forget to check your blind spot, it means don't forget to check what you're not seeing. And that's the whole basis of this is what are we not seeing? What is someone else different from me experiencing? And that's what all these shows represent, whether it's movie mania, whether it's blind commentary, whether it's blind tries. It's like even if I don't have a guest for it, I am a blind person trying all of these things. This is a blind commentary. I am commenting on this as someone who has no recollection of what sight is. And with the story time show, it's this happened to a real person. This story that this person's telling happened to them. And yeah, I'm so proud of it. And I feel like that's what all these shows represent. And all the whole main of the whole brand, the podcast, that everything. That's what it all represents. It's like there are people who go through different things than you. And it's all about being curious and knowing, okay, what does this person have to say about X, you know? And yeah, that's the whole gist of it. Robbie Reeg's out.
All right. Awesome. I love this, man. I love this very much. I got some idea. First off, I just want to ask, your idea for this, do you plan on doing it like a once a week kind of thing? Is it like a twice a week, 3 times a week? How do you plan on like releasing them, or what's your idea for that?
Yeah, so I do plan on releasing it once a week to start. And I my goal is to be releasing twice or 3 times a week. That's my goal. But for now, let's start small and release once a week and see where that takes me.
Yes, absolutely. So what I was thinking, I mean, like, of course, it's something you can start with for now and kind of play it. So, of course, I'm just going to go through each of the parts. So I have them in 6 parts here based on um how you pitch them. So of course there's the part one chit chat, basically like just you, whether it's you and a guest or you by yourself, just talking about things like mental health or whatever. So that would be almost like your intro. So like, hey guys, welcome to the show. Well, this week I was doing this and I was doing that. So I would picture that would be a great way to start off each episode. Like that would be a great way to
Yes.
start it off. So,
Yep.
but I would say keep that about 10 to 15 minutes or so. I would say, I mean, go a little bit longer if you want, but I mean, one thing that I think is important is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, with podcasting compared to radio, there's no, you're not binded by time. You can just go on as long as you want. That's true. But then there's also the thing that you got to consider: how long are people going to listen to? Are people going to listen to a 3 hour podcast, you know? So I think there's a way to include all of these in one episode. But the idea I had was, so of course, keep the part one in there because that's a good intro. Hey guys, this is how the week's going, yada, yada, yada. And then, so now it's time for the comedy hour. If you want to include that in one episode, then you can maybe make the comedy hour say 10 to 15 minutes short, like not crazy long. This almost feels like a sketch comedy show, almost like a, or like a sketch radio show, almost, or like a, this hour has 22 minutes or something like that. So if you make each of those segments say like 10 minutes each, um, so comedy hour about 10 15 minutes each. So let's just say, I'm instead of saying 10 to 15, so let's just say, so 15 minutes for the mental health thing, that's 15 minutes. You do 15 minutes for the comedy hour, that's 30 minutes. And then third part 45, and the next part 60, and then next part is 75, and then next part's 90. So that's an hour and a half right there. So there's that way of doing it, making each segment just not quick, not that you're rushing through it, but I mean like straight to the point so you can squeeze them all in it. Or there's this option here. These are just, my suggestions. What I would do is I would do, if you want to elaborate on those a little bit longer, then I would say do 2 podcasts a week, have say one episode on, let's say a Sunday, where you do the start with the chit chat. Every episode will start off with the chit chat. Talk about mental health. Hey guys, this is how the week's going. Today's Sunday, the Tuesday, whatever day you're doing it. And then the Sunday episode can be comedy hour, story, the story based shows, and then the trying new things maybe. And then do another episode on say Wednesday, and you can start with part one and then do the blind commentary and then world thoughts, or sorry, real world thought, the blind movie review. Sorry. So blind commentary and blind movie review. That's another way to do it. That's it really depends on how you want to do it. I'm not saying you can't have a podcast that's 2 hours long or past an hour and a half. It's just something you consider when you're thinking about, okay, if I was listening to a podcast that long, you kind of put yourself in the listener's shoes. Would I want to listen to that for an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours? I'd say 2 hours is probably, you don't want to go over 2 hours. I'd say hour and a half is ideal. 2 hours, sure, that's fine. Hour and 45 minutes, that's okay. I find anything past like close to 3 hours. I know Joe Rogan has stuff like that, but I mean, let's be real. That's Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? Like people would listen to Joe Rogan for like days if they wanted to. Um, so that's how would you so of course, how does that sound if you were to do it either twice a week or once a week? Which would you prefer now that I've told you what I think my thoughts are on it?
Yeah, no, so that's a great idea actually. I mean, that squashes my expectations right there, man. I love how you see things. That's brilliant. Yeah, no, I think you have a good point. You know, Joe Rogan, I mean, that's debatable. Joe Rogan. I have opinions about him.
Well,
Um,
he's the biggest podcaster in the world. I just used him as an
yeah,
example. I see some of his episodes are like 4 hours long. I'm like, well, he's got millions of listeners. People, I'm pretty sure
exactly.
there's lots of people out there who would listen to that for days.
That's right. That's right. But no, I get what you're saying. Like, an hour is perfect, I think. You know, um, and I think it also depends on how good the host is, in my opinion, too. Like if you're a good host, people can just listen on and on and on and on and on and on, but I understand also what you're saying too. It's like it can be a bit much for some, especially if you're just starting out. It could be a little bit much.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
even if you started off, I mean, of course, there's a trying to, or maybe each week you splice it up. So, okay, this week I'm doing the comedy hour and trying new things. Next week I'm doing story based shows and blind commentary. Next week, so like splice it up each week. You can maybe do that as well. So that's a third option, is to still do it once a week, keep it within the hour and a half range. Um, and you can keep each segment to say 20 to 30 minutes. I think the part one is good of the just basically chit chatting, but I would say keep that fairly condensed because that's just it's an introduction, and also it's good for building a relationship with the audience as well too. Just saying that, guys, this is what's going on in my life today. I woke up, I did this, I did that, and it's almost like it feels like you know them personally, and it feels great. Like you see somebody that you know, and like, hey, how was your day today? Oh, good. I started off, I did this, I did that, and so you're doing that with your audience. It's good for building morale in that way. Um, and then I also do like the idea, the guest interaction one, the story-based shows. That's a good one. It's always great to get the audience involved in some way. That would come, I would say I would that would probably come in time. I probably wouldn't focus too much on that right now because if you're just
right.
starting out, you're not going to have much of an audience to go by. So I mean, if you do comedy hour, try new things, blind commentary and blind movie review, that's a good way to start. And then as you start building up your following, you can say, so hey guys, I'm also doing I'm looking for guests or people to ask questions or send in ideas or whatever. Then that way you can have that segment. I would say for now that would kind of be, wait till the podcast grows a bit, kind of start off, because people, when they start a new podcast, they want to get to know the host a bit more. They want to know who they're listening to each week. It's like the same deal with when you listen to radio stations. For those of you guys in Miramichi area, we wake up every morning, turn on 95.9 to Darcy McLaughlin. Like we built it feels like we know Darcy. A lot of us do know Darcy because it's such a small town here. But that's kind of the same deal with a podcast. You wake up, okay, what's Robbie doing today? Oh, he brushed his teeth. Oh, he did this and he did that. Um, that's what I'd say for that. So take some time with that one, build up your audience, build up good morale with them. And then that way, so you say, hey guys, I need some questions for this episode. Feel free to send them in. And then there's just an outpour, people sending you questions just from everywhere. So, but I do love the comedy hour and the trying new things one. I think, I mean, that'll work on the podcast. You could even do a video segment for that one too. Trying new things, like if you're trying like hot sauce or something like that, It's all about the visuals. You know,
Yeah.
Hot Ones, of course, Hot Ones that's hosted by Sean Evans. If they did that just audio only, it wouldn't be as good because it's all about their facial reactions. I'm not saying that you can't do that as an audio only podcast. It would just be much, much funnier to see their actual reactions. Like, oh my God, like they try the hot sauce and you see the look on their face. It's not the same as when you're just listening to it and going, yeah, they sound like they're in pain, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that is that is all brilliant advice. Because if this was the way I see it, if you told me this 2 years for 4 years ago, man, I'd be like, yeah, but I want to get all these it's like, wait till you have an audience first, you know,
Yeah.
and then do all of that. Yeah, but that's fabulous. No, I love that. Uh, I also think maybe to boost up my interview skills, I could also do interviews with maybe a few people, and I could I could interview some of your friends and
Mm.
some people and to start a level up, and then once I'm leveled up, I can interview someone in the public, and then they promote me from there and see where that takes me too. So that's another idea I had as well. It's like I can also interview people about something too.
Absolutely. My advice on that, and this is just speaking from my experience, start locally. Start with people you know. Like start with Christian, start with me, start with Shelby, like maybe some of the Freedom Forgers. And then like you said, slowly build your way up cuz you don't want to yeah, you're on the first level and then you skip to the final boss. You know, like that's something and then that interview you look back on, you're like, oh my God, I should have been more prepared. I can't believe I did that. So I'd say spend the first few episodes, maybe first 10, first 20. It could, as until you feel ready. Some you might feel ready after the first episode, like it just really depends. But that'd be my advice, to get some people first, slowly start to break away, and then maybe Christian can say, hey, I have a buddy who I grew up with who does this, and he wants, and then start with him and then slowly work your way up. I mean, when I started my podcast, I was doing it with my buddies. I just had my buddies on, and then I slowly worked my way up, and then 2 years later Christian Potenza's on, and then I'm getting people from Trailer Park Boys, so it was, I had to make sure that I was ready because I knew there were some guests I look back on, I'm like, oh, I could have done better with that interview. Oh, crap. But I think also that's normal. And it's something you shouldn't let that get you down either, because every time you do something, the past makes you better. Like what you did in the past will make you better. You do a play. Okay, that play was awesome. Then you do another play, and then you're like, oh God, the play I did before that was shit compared to this one. Doesn't mean it was bad. It's just you're like, oh, I wish I knew then what I know now. So, and that's the same deal with a podcast. And I've done that with many episodes. I look back on some of my first few and some of the interviews. I'm like, oh, I should have done that better. I should have done this better. Some people might see it and go, oh, you did a great job. And I'm like, yeah, it was good. I could have done better. But that's human nature. No matter what, we're always going to critique ourselves. We're always going to say, shit, I should have tried that. I should have been more enthusiastic. That was so awkward. I should have cut out those pauses. Like, no matter what, you're going to be driving yourself crazy over it. But don't let that get you down. You get better with it. Some people would get discouraged by it so easily. I screwed up this interview. I'm done with podcasting. I know of people who did that, not personally, but I've seen people out there who have done that. For example, Ethan Klein and Bill Burr. Ethan Klein and Bill Burr. Ethan had him on his podcast. Bill Burr just eviscerated him. It wasn't as bad as people were saying it was, but he went into therapy after it. He took antidepressants because it was soul crushing for him. Like he had his idol on the show, and he just completely tore a strip off him. But he
In
didn't.
what way? Like, was Bill mean to him? Like, what did he do?
Well, it was complicated because I mean, Bill Burr was just being Bill Burr. Like that's just Bill Burr. He likes to bust people's balls, but the way Ethan Klein was, he was just so uh like Bill would say something to him and he would take it personally, kind of thing. Like that was the problem with that. And then he said after that he went in and he took antidepressants. And meanwhile, Bill Burr's just like, I had a great time on that interview. I don't know why people are making a big deal out of it, but to him it was soul crushing. He's like, I just met my idol and I feel like he tore a strip off me. I didn't think it was as bad. I know people. It was an awkward interview, but it wasn't as bad as people were saying it was. People were making a bit of a mountain out of a molehill with it. But basically, where I'm going with this, we love to go on tangents. Uh, you only get better with each episode you do. And just because you have one bad episode and think I could have done that better, guess what? You're going to be saying that for the rest of your life. I'll be doing, I love doing plays. There's one play I did called Rumors 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, that I thought was the best acting I ever did in anything. Looking back on it now, I see some scenes. Could I have done that better? Yeah, I could have, but who cares? The show went great. I was proud of it. And that's the problem, that people can look at the past and think and just be focused on what could I have done instead of look what I did. Just be proud of what you did and just know that, hey, whatever mistakes you made here, you'll fix it in the future,
Yeah, no, I love everything that you just said, because like I mean everything that you just said. And also I want to point out, for those who can see me, I'm blind and I play with things a lot. So if you see me moving my hands this way and that way, that's what I'm doing. um and we blind people, you'll understand what I'm doing. But like, no, like that is so true. Like, don't do what I did, everybody, when I had the way I see it. Don't go from 0 to like 50 within 2 weeks. Like, don't think just because you have a podcast, don't start thinking like, okay, don't do what I did. Don't start being like, okay, now I'm going to get, I don't know, you already used him. We'll use him again. Joe Rogan on the show. It's like, the chances of him responding to you are very slim. Like I said, man, when I had the way I see it, I am surprised that people actually gave a shit and gave me a chance, because no one knew who I was. I wasn't like on Apple's top charts or anything. I was just this random dude with a podcast. So I love everything you said. Like, that makes so much sense. It's like, you don't want to go from 0 to 50 right there and then. You know what I mean? It takes time, and that's something that uh you know that's something that you got to understand. And for people like me who are just starting out too, I'll also say this. Um like, I don't know if you've experienced this, Frankie, but we all see all the big people doing so well that we think, oh, it's so easy. All they're doing is talking, but it's a little bit different than that, isn't it? Like, don't you think that, like, now that looking back, what I know now that I didn't know then when I had the way I see it, was that these people have been doing it for 5 years already. So they've already gone through the interviewing Auntie Shirley. I was going to give one of my answers away. They already got through interviewing Jenny from the store across the street. Yeah, they've already done interviewing Frank, the dishwasher man, like, they've already been there, done that. And I think that's what people find hard to understand. And that's where my biggest trap was, is that how come these people get to do it, but I don't? And I think that's what can trip some people up too. You know what I mean? And I'm including myself in that. Like, that can really, you could be fooled. Basically, people aren't, they're not trying to fool you, but you can be fooled thinking, oh, it's so easy. Well, when you're in it, it sounds easy, but it's really not as easy as people make it look.
No, exactly. And that was one thing. A good piece of advice, a good friend of mine, Aaron Furlong, shout out to you, Aaron, if you're listening to this. Before I started the podcast, he was giving me some advice about it, because he's done many in the past. He had said, you can't go into it expecting it to be like Joe Rogan. And that's a problem with people who pursue any type of creative endeavor, whether they want to go to acting, directing, podcasting, anything. you can't go in, and it's the unfortunate reality. You can't go into it expecting this is going to happen. So when I go to Hollywood and Matthew McConaughey is signing me up to be in his movie, and Steven Spielberg, I'm working with Steven Spielberg, and Tom Cruise, I'm working with Tom Cruise. If you go into it with that, it's gonna that's gonna drive you nuts, because you're gonna be 60 years old going, oh my God, I'm a failure. I didn't reach my goal because like Tom Cruise is dead now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm 60 years old. Tom Cruise, maybe he's 80, 90, whatever. So you can't go into it with expectations of this is what's going to happen. And that's the unfortunate reality. Now, for some people, it could be proven wrong. They could say, I'm going to go work with Tom Cruise, and they're there working with Tom Cruise. But the reality is, if you can't go into it expecting it. Just basically how I go into it all thinking is just thinking, I mean, I'm no actor who's pursuing this stuff, but I mean, I'm gonna work to the best of my ability. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, you know what? I'm having fun doing this anyway. It's like the same deal when I write and submit plays. You know what? Even if I never sell one, even if a publishing company never picks one up, I mean, I've self-published one because of that very reason. I wanted to publish my work, but I couldn't get any publishers to publish it. So I got people to look at it, editors, and I went and self-published it. If it comes, it comes. If not, it's just, I'm happy doing it. Even if I never sell it, I'm very content with the life I'm living, and just be grateful for what you got. It's cheesy, I know, but trust me, it's going to save you a lot of heartache.
And exactly, in the circle around Joe Rogan, I mean, I don't think he even expected to be Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? He just
No, did you
went
see
into
his
it.
first few episodes? He was doing it out of like a friggin', I don't know where he was doing it from. I'm like, holy shit. Like, how he started compared to where he is now. He's like the number one podcast in the world. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, he started in a garage or something. His episodes were terrible back then.
But you look back on
Terrible.
it now because of who he is, and it's
Yeah.
gold. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. But no, it's like, and that's a problem I fell into. It's like, I expected that X person is going to be on my podcast. And I realized quickly that it's just not to be. It could happen. I'm not saying it won't, but I feel that's what happened with me in the way I see it. I went into it thinking, oh, I'm going to get this person. I'm going to get this person. And I'm going to be the top podcast in the, burned up pretty quickly on that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. It's just, and people will mistake when people like me say that. Like, when I say, oh, like, if you go into expecting that, it's not going to happen. And some people might think, oh, you're just jealous and this and that. I got nothing to be jealous. I mean, like, look, like, I'm no better than anybody. I'm just giving my advice. I'm looking at it from a realistic point of view. There's 100 of people out there like who want to be an actor and stuff. There's lots of people like that. Only one person's going to get a certain role, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it's sad, but that's just the reality of the world. That's how things are, and in no way is that people like me, like, in no way that's us trying to say, oh, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. We hope nothing for the best. We hope you do make it, but you got to temper your expectations. That's all it is. And Robbie, it seems like you've done that. You've really tempered your expectations. You've learned from the mistakes you made. And with that, I'm glad that you've decided to go into podcasting again, because I think the ideas you have here are great. So of course, Christian and I will, I mean, like, of course, you and Christian will certainly be in touch, because, I mean, you guys, I only talk to Christian virtually. You see him in person all the time. So, I mean, yeah, I'm sure you guys will be chatting. But overall, man, I love what I'm seeing here. So basically, to sum it all up, keep it between an hour and 30 minutes. That's ideal. Try not to go longer. And then you have the three options. You can include all 6 of those topics, but just condense them all down to squeeze it in the hour and a half to 2 hour frame. Or you can do some of each per episode. You can, there's, what was the other one? I'm trying to think of the other one here. I thought I had it written down, but I guess I don't. You guys can go back and listen to it, how I wrote.
I do that all the time.
I thought I had it
Frankie, I do
written
that
down, but
all
I
the
guess I
time.
don't.
I say things and I'm just like, why in the hell did I not write that down, you know?
I had the first two options written here, and then the third one just came to me. I didn't write it down, but I'll go back and listen to it
Exactly.
later. But basically, yeah, just go back and listen to what I did. Um, but overall, man, Robbie, we could talk for hours if we wanted to. We really could talk for hours. But as I said, an hour and a half to 2 hours, that's ideal for a podcast. But Robbie, man, we got, you know, I love what I'm seeing, man. I love what I'm seeing. And, I'll
Thank you,
talk to
buddy.
Christian, but I'd love to have you back on. We love to
Oh,
see
I'd
you.
love to be on, man. Frankie, I just want to say, thank you so much for having me on. Like, this is my first ever podcast. The funny thing is, I'll tell you the truth, I've never been on a podcast before.
Aside
So
from
besides
the
from the
one you
Freedom
hosted.
Forgers, but this is my first ever solo pod where I get to fully talk about myself. And I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, Frankie, for all that you've done for the Freedom Forgers program, for all that you've done for me, and for providing me with this opportunity, man. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thank
My
you to everyone who listens to this guy's amazing Corcoran Entertainment Show pod. That's what's up.
he almost fucked up my name, but he saved it. That was a nice save. Cochran. I'm like Robbie, I liked you, and then you almost fucked up my last name, but then you saved it. So I'll let that I'll let that slide. I was like, Robbie,
You
come
can
on,
sue
man.
me if you want, Frankie. I'm fine. I got lots of money.
Yeah. In 10 years when he takes over the Robbie Regs experience, then
Exactly.
that's then he'll sue me for everything I got.
That's right.
So guys, thank you so much. You know what? Let's just cut Christian out of the think tank. I think we did pretty damn good on ourselves. I'm just kidding, Christian. I'm just kidding, buddy.
Guys, I am filling in I'm the new Christian Potenza here at Think Tank.
Christian's gonna listen to this and be like, those bastards, they can't do it without me. They but yeah,
how
guys,
could they leave me out of this? Yeah.
hey, he left himself out of it. I'm like, maybe you shouldn't take on so much work, man. But Christian will be back next week, guys, or next 2 weeks, whenever the next episode comes out. In 2 weeks, yeah. So, guys, thank you so much to Robbie Rego or Robbie Regs, however you want to call him. And you're definitely going to see him around. He and I got lots of stuff planned. We won't talk much about it here, but there's lots of stuff in the works.
It's confidential.
It's confidential, exactly. We signed a non-disclosure agreement. So guys, thank you so much for listening to this week's edition of Thursday Think Tank with Christian and friends, even though there's no Christian. It's just me today and Robbie, but it's fine. Guys, anyone in Miramichi, get your tickets. Love, Loss, and What I Wore. Tickets are $20 May 11th. And you can get your tickets at Town Hill Jewelry, Brandon on the Boulevard, and Junkin' 2 in Chatham. Get those now. All proceeds go to Mental Health Miramichi. And definitely just come show some support. And yeah, that's going to do it for the show today, guys. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys Tuesday for the Corcoran Entertainment Show regular episode. Until then, this is Frankie and Robbie Regs signing off. Take her easy, man.
Peace.